We'll go ahead and get started. Welcome again to our real word presentation tonight. My name is Christina Lizica, and I am one of the program managers here at Voices for Children, along with the moderator for tonight's real word panel. We are so glad to have you with us tonight. We have a very fun topic, I think, tonight, one that all of our panelists are looking forward to. I know we have a lot of CASAs in the house, or potential CASAs, new CASAs, trainees, but just to give some background for those of you who may not be familiar with our program, Voices for Children has been around since 1980, and it was founded to be the one and only San Diego and Riverside County program that is designated by the court to have appointed volunteer court-appointed special advocates, or CASAs, to advocate for foster youth. So these CASAs do anything from making sure a child's educational needs are being met, talking with teachers, making sure that if a tutor is needed, they get that tutor ready and set up for that child, get them caught up to grade level or whatever their needs may be, making sure that sibling visits are happening for this child and their siblings who might be placed in another home. Definitely a big part of what our CASAs do. And then other things would be, medical needs that child has. So if, a NICU a baby's in the NICU, they don't really have anyone to visit them, that CASA can be visiting them, making sure that their needs are being met as not only as a patient in the NICU, but as a baby, right? We all know babies need that contact, and that CASA can be there, as often as they can, visiting that baby. So these advocates are very important in the lives of foster youth, making sure, again, that the needs of those children are being met despite their circumstances in life. So tonight we have a special presentation of what we call our Real Word panel. The Real Word was formed back in 2001 when former foster youth came to us and said, we want to talk about our time in care. We want to talk about our time with our CASAs and what the CASAs did to change our lives. The panel has former and current foster youth. Tonight, I think we all are former foster youth. We are not even foster youth anymore, or youth anymore. We are grown adults. And I apologize in advance if I call them kids. It's a bad habit that I cannot break because they are just kids to me, even though I know they are very successful young adults. But we will be talking about extended foster care, transition into adulthood, what it's like to turn 18 when you're still in dependency, and how a CASA can support that transition, what resources there are available for these young adults, and how CASAs, again, can support them through all of these changes that they're going through. So to start off, I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves, and then we have a full list of questions and topics to cover with you all tonight. Hoping we get through all of it. I know we don't have a whole lot of time, but we should be able to cover most of this information with all of you. So to start, Anthony, do you mind introducing yourself?
Of course. Thank you, Christina, and thank you everybody for joining us on this Wednesday evening. It's so great to not see all of your faces, but to be here presenting to you all and for allowing us this awesome platform to kind of share our stories in hopes that we're bettering the lives of youth that enter into the foster care system or are currently in the foster care system. Again, my name is Anthony O'Leary. I am now 25 years old, removed from the system by about 10 years, 11 years, and I've been speaking on this panel for over a decade now about my experiences in the system. I entered in and out into the system multiple times. I'll be primarily speaking about my final case in the foster care system that started right when I was about 11 years old in middle school. And I received my one and only CASA Daniel during that time. And he really made an impact in a lot of different ways, but especially with my education and really pushing me to pursue whatever it was that I dreamed of. So I also have a younger brother and some other younger siblings that never entered into the foster care system. If that holds value for you, we will definitely be, I'll be talking about my younger brother a lot tonight. And um, yeah, so I'm happy to share this with you all. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, Anthony. Vanessa, you want to go next?
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Happy Wednesday. My name is Vanessa. I will start by sharing with you all what I shared with The panel, I did just get off of work with some first graders, so forgive me if my brain is a little foggy. But the 6-year-olds have taken my energy for this Wednesday. So I'm here. I'm really excited to speak with you all. I was in foster care from ages 8 to 21, and I had one CASA from ages 11 to 18, or about 21 when I aged out. And I still have her in my life. And so I will be talking tonight a little bit about my CASA, how she affected my life being separated from my brother in the system, how she affected my education, and a little bit about what I'm doing now and some of the help or support that I hoped that I would have gotten outside of having my CASA and advice for you all. So very excited to be here.
Thanks, Vanessa. Emanuel?
Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. My name is Emanuel. I've been in and out of the system twice, first as an infant and second in my teenage years because of my mom's mental health. And luckily, because of Voices for Children, I've had my CASA Tim for over a decade now, and I consider him, one of my best friends. I can go to him for anything. And honestly, our relationship has changed where he comes to me for advice, CASA advice. So yeah, just I'll talk about my experiences with Tim and how he's changed my life in a good way. Thank you.
Thank you, Emmanuel. All right, Josh, you are up.
Thank you, Christina. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here on this beautiful Wednesday evening. My name's Josh. I went through 9 different high schools and 7 different placements, all ranging from group homes to foster homes. And I went through the system with my 2 younger sisters at the age of 14. And it was quite the roller coaster I went through, and I had a lot of help along the way. A lot of the connection that I have with this panel, especially E-Man, since we have the same CASA, it just stems from all of our relations. Anyways, yeah, I'll be willing to talk about a lot today, but Christina, go ahead and take it.
All right, thanks, Josh. Okay, so as I mentioned, we will be talking about transitional age youth transitioning from, being a teenager in care, whether that be at a group home or a foster home or with a relative, whatever it may be, transitioning then to being 18 or maybe 21 when you move out of that home, you move out of that situation and you move out, like you go to college or you go move into your own apartment and all that that entails, right? We all know, those of us who are older than 18, what that means. It's not just moving into a new home and suddenly you're on your own and you're good to go. There are utilities to pay attention to. There's furniture to buy. There's dishes to get. So there's a lot that goes with that. So when speaking about housing, can one of you, a couple of you, talk about what that was like? And maybe it's moving into a dorm and what it was like trying to, get furnishings for that, or moving into your first apartment and how you went about that. And whether your CASA did something specifically for you, or, if you were already out of care, you didn't have your CASA assigned, maybe what a CASA could do, or, a resource that you had to count on. Does somebody want to take that? Vanessa, I see you nodding. Maybe you want to go first on it.
Yeah, I can briefly answer this only because I was recently thinking about housing. I'm 23 years old. I've been out of the system since I was 21 after extended foster care ended. And I've already lived in 4 apartments. So I'm in my 4th apartment. I went to UCLA for undergrad like Anthony, and I'm currently getting my master's online. But housing for me has always been like one of the most frustrating things because I'm constantly thinking about where am I living next and having to juggle all of these achievements that I'm going for, my master's degree, different jobs that I could have. And housing has always been this like wish that I wish could be stable. And so I think one piece of advice I would give to you CASAs, something that my CASA didn't know about herself or didn't know herself when she was my CASA, is the THP Plus program. It's talked about a lot for extended foster youth, and it's something that I was against It's a program that offers housing until you're 25 years old. A lot of them have savings programs, so you pay rent and then they save half of your rent every month and you get a check when you leave. I wish I had known about this sooner because straight out of UCLA, I got my own apartment and we all know life is so expensive. And so I wish someone had told me to at least try THP Plus instead of trying to overdo it and over escape the foster care system. I didn't want anything to do with anything foster care. And if I had done that, I could have had somewhere to stay for 4 years at a time instead of 1 or 2. So I think that would be my best advice is encouraging stability for housing because it really makes a difference how you can even approach your career or school or hobbies and a community. It makes a big difference.
Thanks, Vanessa. Any of you guys have something to add?
I can
Emanuel?
piggyback off of Vanessa. I mean, so for once, I'm 29 and I went to college in Monterey for just a semester. And uh, in my housing situation, it was very awkward. As a freshman for foster youth, you're mandatory to live on campus. I wasn't. They overbooked, and for whatever reason, my name got lost in all the names that were, accepted to Monterey Bay. So I got put in a, housing off campus. Luckily, I there was like, a web page for that graduating class to find, a roommate, and I found a roommate, and it worked out great. But when I moved back, my casa, Tim, actually helped me move all my stuff back to San Diego. And because I was a part of San Pasqual Academy and they were a part of New Alternatives, I enrolled myself into THP Plus. And luckily I knew about it because I went to San Pasqual Academy. Not like I said, not everybody knows, like Vanessa, she didn't know about that. And not every foster youth knows about THP Plus. And I actually have to tell other people or other foster youth or other CASAs about THP Plus to tell, the young adults about THP Plus. And it's a awesome program. Like Vanessa said, you pay rent, air quotes, but like half, like I believe like it's more than half. It might be 70% gets saved up. And when you end the program, it can be whenever. All you got to do is either go to school full time, work full time, or go half and half. And you just got to, make sure the house is clean. You're seeing the people you need to see, staying on top of rent and all that stuff. And by 25, when you age out, air quote age, that system, they give you all the money they saved up so you can go put it down on a deposit for another apartment.
Awesome. Thank you. Um, for when any one of you moved into your first apartment, whether that was at 21, that was later on after the THP program, when you moved in, or even in the THP program, how did you go about getting those basic needs? Your couch, your bed, kitchen table, things like that. Did you just know everything you needed? Did CASA tell you? Did somebody else tell you? How did that all go for you? Because I know that's something that all of the youth are going to face at some point, and I'm just curious if you guys have any advice along those lines.
I'm gonna go ahead and take this one first. Because I want to just emphasize the previous points that were made because it is so important, I think, for CASAs that have older kids that are getting ready to be young adults to be a little bit aware of like how important and difficult it can be to reach this stage of our lives when um we are not trained in the sense that we need the basics drawn out for us at every stage of our lives, including, and this is no exception, figuring out housing and basic housing needs and all of the above when it comes to this. And as we all know, and Vanessa shared how expensive it is, especially in the state of California right now, to even just survive, let alone Southern California and San Diego specifically. So, with that being said, Vanessa had mentioned that I did attend UCLA, and I really want to share about this program that I received support from when I was in my senior year of college and moved into my first off-campus apartment. And it was right down the street from UCLA, a rinky-dink apartment where I was spending my financial aid money to pay rent, right? And I had no idea how I was going to do anything. I had literally my bed frame and a mattress and nothing else. And my aunt was supporting me at the time, who ended up being my guardian after my case had ended. But aside from that, I didn't really have too much. However, there's a program called A Sense of Home that is based in Los Angeles that um, supported me, and I found out about where they provide you furniture for your first apartment or first housing situation, where it is essentially a fully furnished breakdown of the basic needs from a couch to kitchen table, and you give them an idea of kind of what your living dynamic is, if it's a one-bedroom apartment, a studio, and you kind of take a picture or video of that, and they actually have a warehouse of furniture that's either been donated to them or whatever the circumstance is, where they kind of build a mini home with their interior designers on their team to support you and furnish your apartment or home. And that was a really, really awesome experience. And now I mentioned I'm 25 years old. I've long moved out from that apartment, but the furniture came with me. And I actually reached out to them just about 2 weeks ago when they followed up with me to ensure that I'm not homeless, that I've, survived on, and I let them know I'm still using their furniture to this day. And I was really grateful for that program, and I highly, highly recommend, if you have any transitional age youth that you're working with, to give it a look at A Sense of Home if they're thinking about, what their next step is of living on their own.
Sounds like a great organization. I do know we have one similar. It's not specific to foster youth or youth in college. That I will have to just try to find the name of because I'm blanking on it right now. But we also do have within San Diego County a program called Just in Time that you will hear us mention probably multiple times this evening. And if you have a youth who's 18 or older, you have probably heard the name of as well. They do a lot of things for transitional age youth. One of them is providing basic needs and furnishings for that first home. So definitely, if you're in this situation, your youth is in this situation, that would be a place I would recommend reaching out to. Um, so thinking now, we kind of started talking about schooling and UCLA education. There's a lot that goes into applying to school, applying for financial aid, all the different scholarships that could come up. Um, and it's hard to know like when to do these things. CASAs may not have youth, kids of their own who went through college, or maybe they're not at that age yet, or maybe it's been a while since they went through that process with their own kids. Plus, things change all the time. So, is there a resource? Is there any advice you can give for these CASAs who are having youth who are applying to school, or who they want to help apply to school and getting that financial aid? Where's kind of like a good starting point for them? Um, Josh, do you have anything on that?
I don't really. I went to school outside of California. I know like SDSU, UCLA. I don't know about UCLA. I meant UCSD. They have a lot of on-campus resources. I fought really hard with my advisor at school to try to look into those programs for me. It took me going to the financial aid office and then being there in person and really bugging them about it to get a better understanding of what they could assist me with. Also, I can't remember the kind of worker. It's I think a SILP worker. They'll also be really good about informing the youth about what programs are offered as far as that aspect goes. And when it comes to college, applying to as many uh scholarships as you possibly can is key. I wish I applied to it. I paid for college out of my own pocket, and it is expensive. So if there's a $50 scholarship, you apply for it. If there's a 500, 5,000, whatever the case may be, and you can do it year after year. It's not just your freshman year or before you even start college. You can keep applying. So that's my note.
Thanks, Josh. And Anthony, I wanted to give you a break because I know you can actually speak quite a bit on this. Anthony's current position is also very much related to this topic. So I want to give him just a little bit of time to talk about kind of where kids are starting in high school and how a CASA can support them through those couple years in school, and then how a child can be, taking full advantage of this financial aid situation that is available to them.
Absolutely. And thank you for the break, Christina. As you can probably imagine, when Josh was talking, my brain was just turning. I was getting ready, my light bulbs were lighting up. So my current position actually is with San Diego State for a TRIO program, which is a federally funded program that supports local San Diego high schoolers in preparing for college. So we service 9 schools here in San Diego, freshman through senior year. And although we're a program through San Diego State University, we actually help students apply for college at whatever school they want to get into. And that goes beyond just a 4U university, but also community college and trade school at this point too. So I'm working at Crawford High School and Hoover High School as well as San Diego High. So a lot of the inner city schools that a lot of youth that are facing, similar backgrounds of underserved communities and things of that nature are coming from. So with that being said, we are at the height of unlimited resources being provided for youth with this background of low income and first generation in the foster care community and so on and so forth. And what that means is that there are programs and organizations for everything. There are scholarships everywhere for people that are left-handed. So when Josh is talking about a $5 or $5,000 scholarship, he is completely right. And I was one of those kids that applied for every single scholarship and had the ability to attend UCLA on a full ride scholarship, but it wouldn't have been if I didn't apply myself. But before all of that, when we're talking about early level high school students and even middle school, if you are serving a youth that's in that 13, 14-year-old range, I think it's so important, even if they're not fully on board about their education or wanting to get into a really big college or anything like that, there is still an emphasis on them developing their identity in the ways that they can utilize their story in the foster care system to benefit them in the ways that they receive money. Because there are programs in colleges that love to hear about youth that have gone beyond their circumstances and their background of either the foster care system or homelessness. And with that being said, there's a ton of scholarships out there too. So it's helping them understand their story from an early point, and then once they get into that sophomore or junior year, really getting them into some volunteering opportunities and helping them get involved with sports or clubs, things that will kind of build up their extracurriculars and help them kind of develop a resume with who they are as a person if they're interested in getting into this. But with that being said, too, there is a lot of opportunity in the workforce. Trade school and HVAC and electrician school is at its height as well. So if education isn't really a route for your youth, there are options outside of just university. So do not minimize their abilities or what they want to do just because college isn't really for them or they're not excelling in high school. There is so much that goes into this. As you can see, I can go all night about this, but I think what's most important is that youth with the background of the foster care system, whether or not education is their route, they have such a powerful story that people want to hear, that people will give their money to that youth because they've recognized the resilience they've provided and the traits that they've developed over the years because of their journey through the foster care system.
Thank you, Anthony. I really wish I was taking notes. You triggered like several different thoughts in my head that I wanted to hit on. The scholarships, definitely. And Anthony not only applied to a bunch of scholarships, he's being humble. He received a lot of scholarships, like a ton of them. So definitely apply to what you can, no matter what. For those CASAs, or the people in the audience who are current CASAs, we are sending out an email this week. If you did not receive it today, your supervisor will be sending it out within the next couple of days, specific to scholarships. There's one, I believe, specific to vocational or trade school. There's a Dale Yankee scholarship, which has two award winners who receive up to, I think it's $5,000 per year, and you can apply a second time around, each year afterward. So definitely look at that email, hunt for these scholarships. A great resource is John Burton Advocates for Youth, JBAY for short. They have a whole guide, webinars and trainings to support people through this. So you as the CASA, maybe the caregiver, the parent, whomever's involved, giving you a breakdown of where to start, when to start, doing all these things so that you have that support. Again, if you've never done this before, or it's been a long time since you walked a child through applying for college or scholarships. So definitely check that out. Great resource. I highly recommend looking into that. A lot of the college campuses also have a program called Guardian Scholars, and that is a program specific for foster youth. And I know Emanuel had experience with them, but it was a little bit delayed. So Emanuel, do you want to talk to our audience about, what you wish could have happened in advance, kind of giving CASA's advice on how the youth could benefit from this program more than you did?
Yeah, like I said earlier, my name got like dragged behind everybody that applied to Monterey Bay. So, again, luckily I got first priority for, applying to classes. I had first priority, but everything else I was delayed. And then I never knew about Guardian Scholars till halfway through the semester when I was like failing at everything. And then I went to the Guardian Scholars office, and I saw all the programs and help they provide for former foster youth or foster youth that are going to college. They provide counseling, they provide, books, notebooks, pencils, like any basic necessities for students. They, like I said, provide counseling, they provide even like tutoring. And I wish I knew about this in the beginning and wasn't, it was just bad luck where the school, like I said, I was first priority on, getting classes, but every other program outside of that, I wasn't a part of it. It was a lesson learned. But you can't live with regrets. So it's just and I believe every CSU school, even community colleges, I believe have guardian scholars. I believe so. All the UCs, all the CSUs, and I believe Grossmont has guardian scholars here as well in San Diego. I don't know about Kiamaka because I didn't go there. So.
Awesome. Thank you. So definitely something for CASAs to be aware of. Be on the lookout for that Guardian Scholars program. Look into it before your youth goes off to college, and look into it with them. I'm going to switch gears a little bit. Talk a little kind of about mental health and relationships. I know, when you're in the system, you have views on relationships that may be healthy and may not be healthy, and you may carry that with you. I guess is the way to put it. You have these relationships that you think are good, but really they're not. And it takes you time to figure that out and adjust to that, especially as you're growing into your independent life outside of care. There's, the lot of cycles, right? That's one of the big problems within foster care. What leads to kids coming into care is that there's cycles of abuse, cycles of neglect that have been going on for years within a family sometimes. Can you guys talk to us about, I don't know, what it's like to go through the breaking of those cycles to changing that view from an unhealthy relationship to a healthy one, or vice versa? And, like what support there is for that, or what support you wish you had through that process. Vanessa or Josh, I know you both had stuff to talk about earlier when we were talking about this. Does one of you want to take the lead on it? Vanessa, maybe?
Start, Josh. You want to start? This is kind of a heavy question, so I'll think about it for a little bit.
Okay.
Josh wants to start.
Yeah, I could definitely take the lead on that. For me, when I first entered care at 14 and a half years old, it was really difficult for me to want to talk about the feelings that I was already going through. Having multiple forms of abuse, physical, emotional, spiritual. It was a very torturous environment. I wasn't allowed to eat some nights. And I was sexually abused. So there was a lot of things like really built up when I was younger, and I wasn't very comfortable with talking about it. And it had a negative toll in the long run. Uh, Finding, safety in my relationships, lashing out because I feel uncomfortable, but I can't identify it. Not having complete understanding of what the real emotion was. My first emotion that I feel always is anger, when realistically that's not the actual emotion I'm feeling. I'm feeling sad because you hurt my feelings. I'm upset because you spoke to me in this tone. And I feed off of micro expressions. I'm not sure if anybody knows what those are, but if just a slight raise of eyebrows or a change in like your cheek level, like I pick up on it just because of the all the environments I've been in. And it felt it was always difficult to communicate that until I was older. And I just wanted to have a better understanding of myself and my emotions. And that was when I finally started going through to therapy. 20 years old. I'm 25 now, for reference. I've been going to therapy for 5 years now, and it has helped me develop respect for myself. That's the first person that I wanted to learn how to respect, and setting those boundaries for people to respect what I've put in place. And with that being said, it requires a level of vulnerability that is really hard to assess, especially because of the background we've all came from. The abuse, just this connotation of how men are supposed to be perceived. I didn't have many men in my life who were vulnerable, knew how to communicate, or let alone treat people with respect until I met my CASA. Um, and that definitely was a motivator. Another thing about it was that I wanted to break that cycle of the verbal abuse, the physical abuse, and being in control of my emotions, knowing when I'm feeling them, how I'm feeling them, and communicating them to those around me. And that's also come along with identifying toxic relationships within friends, significant others, and family members. And that goes back to respecting myself and not letting others cross those boundaries. I can keep talking, but I could go on and on about this topic. Mental health is so important. Whether you're in the system, you've been through something, or you've been through nothing. What I don't really talk about my past. I'll get a little vulnerable here. When I'm in therapy, I don't think I've ever spoken about my childhood and my upbringing. I've only spoken about what I can control now. Did I handle this situation at work correctly? Did I handle this conversation with my partner correctly? Well, I may have overreacted. How do I manage that in the moment? How can I become better at communicating my feelings, or what I need to assess my feelings so that I can then come back and communicate those? Because the things you say in anger, you can't come back from. The actions you have in anger you can't fix those. You can't take those back. And so I'm learning how to address what I'm currently facing before I open up Pandora's box and developing all kinds of new feelings and emotions um, that I've felt, but I've compartmentalized. I've accepted my childhood for what it is, and I can't control it, and there's nothing I can do about it. All I can work on is what I'm currently facing, what I'm dealing with, what I'm going through. So,
Thank you, Josh. And Josh made point of another resource that would be great for your youth. He mentioned this not just now, he didn't miss it, but it's a program called Fostering Greatness. And they actually are a hub of a lot of supports. So definitely worth checking out. But one that he had mentioned was that he was able to go through them to find long-term therapy and he doesn't have to pay. So that's definitely something that can be useful to these young adults as they're, maybe just now getting into therapy and starting to say it's, time that I address these things or address, like Josh said, address what I'm going through now. Building healthier mechanisms to handle stress or anger or whatever it might be, but definitely worth looking into that resource. Um, Vanessa, did we give you enough time to think of some thoughts?
Yes, I've had plenty of thoughts the whole time. I've been trying to turn off the tears. I also, before I get into my response, I wanted to mention another therapy resource, A Place of Growth. It's called A Place of Growth Therapy. They offer free EMDR therapy, and that's a therapeutic service that typically come requires out-of-pocket payment, and it's like eye movement therapy, and you talk about really intense um, memories. So it's not definitely for beginners, but for youth who are tired of talk therapy, EMDR is an option at a Place of Growth Therapy. I really just wanted to touch on one thing that Josh mentioned. Whew. And I think it's really important for foster youth to know this. Um, Josh mentioned self-respect, and especially for young women. Whew, I think a lot of foster youth grow up learning that their lives are disposable. And whew, growing up, it was really hard being in a household with a single mother. She was a black woman who's gone through her own history. And I remember as a child always like pre-forgiving her and always felt feeling sorry for her. Sorry that she couldn't take care of me, as ironic as it is, not being able to feed us food. I remember being like 3 years old and my mom like sending me in to kindergarten with my brother to eat food and then like run up to school. And only recently have I realized that I've been conditioned to think that that was okay for me to be treated like an accessory or like an extra, like a cat at sometimes. And I've gone through my whole life feeling like I was on this earth to save people. But working with children has taught me that I'm always trying to save people because I was never saved. And self-respect comes from being saved and knowing that foster youth, you can save yourself. And I always say this, that my CASA, she didn't save me in any way, but she taught me how to save myself. And it's the same way that they say you can train a man, or you can give a man fish, or you can train him how to do it himself. Something like that, more fancy, of course. And it's so real that you can, help your foster youth apply to college and then bounce out of their life, or you can sit down and have real conversations with them face to face when they're angry, when they're sad, when they're ignoring you, when they seem like they don't care. And you can just like talk to them and remind them in the present moment that they do care and that they do matter. And most importantly, I always remembering that my CASA was a lawyer and she was volunteering her time. And I always knew this at 11, 12, 13 years old. She would come pick me up in her fancy car. And I always felt like my mom might not be willing to fight for me, but this woman is showing up for me who isn't my mom, taking me out to eat. So if she cares about me, I must be worth something. And working with children has taught me that it's not that hard to be respectful to people, and it's not okay to be mean. So I think self-respect is a huge thing to work on with your foster youth and to just show up to your foster youth with your own self-respect so they can see it in action. It makes a big difference.
Thank you for that, Vanessa. One thing we had talked about before was hyper independence. And I know Vanessa had some thoughts on this last week when we were all in a meeting together. Um, but it's kind of coming through right now. Like Vanessa looks very put together and you good to go, but there may be young adults who are transitioning out of care and they may appear that way and they're not okay. You know, they may be struggling, they may just be putting on this front. So one thing that I know Vanessa had wanted to make a point of tonight was checking in on those young adults, checking in on your youth. Again, even if they seem like, you know, they're in school, they're going to their classes, they've got their apartment put together, um, they may be struggling, and it might be struggling with the self-respect that Josh and Vanessa are talking about now, or they might be struggling with breaking those cycles, or, you know, recognizing that they're in a bad relationship and they can't figure out how to get out of it, or they might be another thing we had talked about was that they might be in survival mode, right? They haven't figured out how to live outside of that struggle, outside of that, like, I just need to make sure I have food, make sure I'm showing up when I'm supposed to be there, um, living from day to day. And so they might need that extra support and encouragement. So if your youth looks like they're good, that's great. Hopefully they are. Reach out to them and check in, regardless of how that outward appearance might be. Okay, switching gears, employment. This is a big topic as well. Whether your youth goes to school right after high school, you know, college, community college, vocational school, or, you know, just wants to work, just wants to earn money, for whatever reason. You know, maybe that's what they just have instilled in them, is what they're supposed to be doing, is getting money so they can pay for their housing, any of this sort of thing. Or, you know, maybe they started working at Trader Joe's and they love it and that's what they want to do. Employment is a big thing. And it starts, of course, you know, not necessarily at 18. It might start at 16. It might start at 22 when you're done with college. But there's a lot behind finding a career and building your resume. You know, what can a youth put on there if they've never had a job? So we know that this is a place where CASAs can step in and support their kids going through this. And I know one topic that some of these guys I know are wanting to address is, what does it mean to go to work? What does it mean to be an employee? You know, how do you interact with the employer in an appropriate professional manner if you've never been in that situation? And I can say myself, a former youth I had on my caseload had a real hard time with authority. And, you know, she went to just volunteer at a place one day to see if she could be employed there. And it went horribly wrong because she had no idea how to engage with the potential boss, right? So, can we start with, you know, resumes, job searching, interviews, kind of talk through that? Like, do you know, I don't know, how can CASA support in that manner, or what did your experience look like when you were trying to build that resume and, you know, look for a job, whether that be, again, when you were, you know, in your 20s or when you were 16? Who can I pick on for that one? Josh,
I
you
can,
volunteering?
I'll volunteer. Um, Man, I don't even know where to start. There's so many things I could talk about on this topic. I too had issues growing up with authoritative figures. I was very combative. Definitely saying subordinate. Those are all corporate terms. And I had an issue with receiving feedback and being in a place where you're identifying like toxic atmospheres. We all have been in toxic working atmospheres. And I've learned that you can have feelings, and sometimes your feelings may be right, but they're sometimes better off just leaving them to yourself. Um, Starting at 18, I wish I did more internships. This is coming just from personal experience. I wish I did more internships going throughout college, throughout high school, so I could really figure out what my niche was, what I really enjoy doing. That builds your resume, that builds rapport, that gives you those business connections. Referrals are key, right? We all need our references, people to refer us. And that's huge. Creating your network, your community, especially in a business atmosphere. Um, constructing a resume, there's an infinite amount of ways to construct a resume. And I know just in time helps with resume writing. And as far as interviewing skills, I would say I'm really good at an interview. And that's come to being put in uncomfortable positions, healthy, uncomfortable positions with my CASA by teaching me how to advocate for myself in the courtroom, advocating for myself when it comes to my social workers, and being on this real world panel. This has helped me tremendously with answering questions on the fly, coming up with answers with 30 seconds on the clock, and having to answer it with 30 seconds only on the clock. And that's helped tremendously. And I would like to go back to the whole therapy thing that has helped me um, work through receiving feedback, expressing little to no emotion, which is incredibly hard. Emotions are so hard, so everyone should give themselves slack for that. That it is so hard to not show, to not react. Um, and just understanding that you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to make yourself out to be perfect. Stay true to who you are and be connected to yourself. And people will see that and realize that. Um, Most people who are interviewing have a good sense and judge of character. And by just utilizing your story, that just shows more than just what you have to offer that's on a dumb piece of paper, which is being able to show up on time and showing that you're always going to show up for yourself, meaning you'll show up for them. Um, it's not an easy atmosphere. It's just the same way you're working on yourself internally, you have to work on yourself for an employee as well. And I never really understood that until my mid 20s.
I definitely think it takes everybody some time to figure it out, um, for sure. Emanuel, I'm going to call you out here. I just know that we have talked previously about your employment and how you've grown in your role and how you've kind of set yourself up to be that mentor type person for newbies coming in. And I think that just sets a great example. It's not, it's something that maybe Tim, your CASA did for you, but it's something that you've learned to do for others. Can you just share a little bit about that? Just because I think it's so great that you've put yourself in such a position to be so, like I said, a mentor to these younger people coming in to work with you.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Let's back off of Josh. I mean, Tim, my casa, put me out of my comfort zone, to get a job. Because I wasn't going to the school at the time, and he helped with the resume and all that stuff. And I applied to a lot of jobs and I failed, and I didn't pass the interview process. And then I finally got this job at a parking company, and even there, I've been there with the company for about 7 to 8 years now, and Tim still pushes me out of my comfort zone. He's like, all right, when are you going to ask for a promotion? When are you going to move up? When are you going to ask for a pay raise? And he pushes me, and nowadays Tim doesn't even have to ask me. I kind of do it on my own. And because I moved up and I'm air quotes an assistant manager, but on paper I'm a supervisor, but uh, I train all of our new employees to drive around and give out fee notices to people who don't pay at garages and parking lots and stuff like that. And so now I'm training these guys, 3, 5 days out of the week. And, what are you going to talk about? Things get boring. You can't talk about, what kind of favorite music for 8 hours a day. So, you ask generic questions like, where are you from? Have you lived in San Diego your whole life? What school did you go to? Things like that. So me talking about me being in the foster care, I talk about it all the time now without, like, basically being on a panel without being on the panel. And Tim has ever since I graduated high school has been pushing me to come on the panel, and I was like, no, there's no point. There's no point. Like they don't need my voice. It's mine's a generic story. No one really cares. But I'll say this is my story is completely different to a lot of people, which everybody's is. And there's a lot of negative things about the foster care, but there's a lot of positives, and my story has a lot of positives. And those types of stories need to be talked about too. Like yeah, like we can talk about all the negatives and bad things that happen in the foster care, or um, you know, bad stories, all the abuse and all that stuff. But a lot of times, like for me, it wasn't all about abuse. It's about the good things that happened in my life, like my foster parents and Tim, my casa. So those are the types of stories we need to talk about, and that's what I learned. Training, I've trained like about like 50 people now. That my story does mean something, and to those young adults that I've trained, or older adults too, they they hear my story and they have a different perspective in life. Uh, More positive, better outlook on life instead of all the negatives that are around in the world.
Thanks, Emmanuel. And I do like the plug Josh made about the real word. We are definitely looking for new members to be on this panel. So the youth that are listening, or the CASAs with youth who are 15 and up, please reach out. We would love to get them trained and get them as part of our panel. And as they all, or as Josh mentioned, and you can clearly see, it does help your interview skills. These four young adults have come a long way since they've joined the panel, and being able to answer these questions on the spot, answer real hard questions and deep questions. We're not going as deep down as we typically go in our panel presentations, just given the topic tonight, though Vanessa brought us there. I guess I brought us there with the mental health questions, but they have been able to become comfortable with their stories. Like Emanuel said, he shares his story with anybody he's training. He just opens up, and I think it definitely helps, and I'm sure our panelists agree, it helps them process all of what they've been through as well. But it's also this other community of like-minded individuals, and again, that interview skills that they could learn by joining our panel. So if you're interested, you want more information, reach out. We would be happy to talk to you about it. All right. So with education, with employment, come all the questions around finances and all the fun and all the hardships that finances can bring to someone, especially if they've never dealt with finances and maybe nobody taught them about it. So this is another spot where we see CASAs can step in and either guiding their youth in the right direction to find financial support, or providing answers themselves. We all have a home or an apartment. We pay mortgage, we pay rent, we pay bills, we get loans, we do all of this. And this is something that these young adults need to learn at some point. And, where are they going to find that information? So I would love if a couple of our panelists could talk about this. Where did they need the support, or where did they get the support? What is one specific thing maybe that you're just like, I still don't know how to do this, and I could really use some help on how to get a credit card or whatever it might be. Vanessa, do you maybe want to chime in a bit on this?
Yes, I'll make it brief. I've actually mentioned this before. It's related to finances, but a little bit more on the support side, and like what it feels like to be a foster youth, for at least for me. I introduced this term, I think, last panel. It's called survivor's remorse. And it's this feeling that anyone can get when you make it out of a really hard situation and you feel guilty, or like you have to turn around and save those who were left behind. Straight out of foster care at 18, I went to UCLA, and Anthony mentioned earlier, received like refunds every quarter to cover my housing. And I was really good at investing that money into buying my own vehicle, having my apartment off campus, putting it into a retirement account when I was 18. And all of that eventually was depleted. Right now, I'm currently rebuilding my finances, currently working two jobs, still going to school, and like really realizing that it's never too late for you to fall. And I assumed that I was so high up and that I had my whole mindset on, but because of my family who's still not really doing too well, not out of survival mode, an unhealthy relationship where there was financial abuse, and me feeling like I had to pay for someone to be in my life or to care about me. I think I just really emphasize for CASAs to remind youth that money is a very personal thing and it is for your own investment, to invest in yourself, learn how to feed themselves, learn how to dress, how to feel good, get a personal trainer at the gym to feel better in your body. I think just really emphasizing how money can be used so that we don't fall into tendencies that we saw our parents fall into, or our communities, drug use, shopping addictions, et cetera, et cetera. Just survivor's remorse, I think, is not talked about enough. So,
Thanks for that viewpoint, Vanessa. Anthony, Josh, Emmanuel, any advice for budgeting, for finances, where youth can find support for any of that?
Yeah, I can chime in. I it, quick resources just in time. They do a financial literacy course. They meet um, typically all year round. They have a 2-year kind of track teaching you how to invest, how to budget, all kinds of things. I had zero clue what financial literacy was, or how to budget, how to save, how to even invest. Those were all things that were a very foreign language. My parents were horrible with money. We were always facing a financial hardship. We wouldn't eat because we didn't have money. And that's something that I never want my children to face. And that's something I never want to face myself. Um, again. So I recommend taking some kind of course, whether it's through Just in Time or you're sitting down with your CASA. It's a hard topic to talk about, but it is vital, especially for foster youth. Just like Vanessa said, yeah, having that survivor remorse. I'm gonna use your term, Vanessa. It's something that I faced for sure myself. Um, and I I think budgeting is key, not overspending, and definitely taking care of yourself. I spent a couple years where I was not taking care of myself, and my physical health definitely affected my mental health. Um, so I definitely want to stress the importance of that.
Thank you. And again, that is just in time for foster youth, offering those financial literacy classes. Definitely worth having your youth sign up for those. And like Josh said, it covers a broad spectrum of things. So investing, um, budgeting, smart saving habits, all that good stuff that, I wish I had those classes when I was 18, 19, but definitely worth having your youth look into that. Um, we had some questions come in prior to the panel about taxes, because of course, now you have money, now you have taxes, and handling that. Um, I will say there is a California foster youth tax credit, so it is worth to have foster youth file their taxes. They will get a refund if I wrote down the specs here so I don't forget. If they're between 18 to 25 years of old the year prior to filing, um, and they're in foster care on or after their 13th birthday, and if they earned between a dollar and, this was for last year, mind you, $1,31,950 from any work, they will receive a credit. So definitely have your kids file. Now, learning how to file taxes can be intimidating. Doing your taxes can be intimidating, especially if you have no idea what you're doing. You've never done this before. You're not sure you're going to qualify for anything. And that's where I will say again, JBay is a great resource. They offer trainings, step-by-step guides. So as a CASA, look into that, look into it with your youth, and you can definitely get those filed. And I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, but I think they have an extended deadline for foster youth to apply to that. Not positive, but still worth looking into it, even though we are past that April 15th deadline. Any feedback from any of our panelists about taxes or what you might have learned about taxes yourself? Looking like
I
none.
can say
Okay.
something. I'm sorry if I get Tim in trouble, but when I was in high school, I had like a semi part-time job at the school I was at, and it wasn't even to Tim, it wasn't significant enough for me to file my tax, so he just said, "Don't even worry about it." But when I finally got a like when I started working at my parking company, they asked for tax purposes. They gave me the option one or zero, and I was like, "What the heck does that mean?" Like independent, dependent. I was like, "What? Like, huh?" And then I immediately called Tim, and then he explained everything to me. One takes out more money for taxes. The other, you don't. You get the money immediately, and you get taxed on it later. So he just explained to me what all that stuff. And then that following year, tax season comes up. I'm on TurboTax thinking I can just plug it all in and everything is, all good. And I'm reading all these questions. I don't know what they mean. I don't, nothing, nothing makes sense. And I call Tim and he literally sits down with me on the phone and we go over every single question. So I get the most out of it. So yeah. Sorry if I got Tim in trouble there when I was younger.
Thanks, Emmanuel. All right. I'm going to go back. I skipped over this before, just to make sure we hit some of those bigger, important topics. Not that all of this is not important, but some are a little heavier than the others. Groceries, grocery shopping, making a list, meal planning, cooking. If you're not taught that when you're growing up, maybe you've never gone grocery shopping, you've never made a grocery list, like that's a big thing to one day just suddenly have to do on your own. What advice would you guys give to CASAs who are, with a youth who has never done any of this or needs to learn how to do it? What would you tell that CASA? How would you have them walk the child through this process? Anthony.
Yeah, this is a tough one because I mean, it goes into the bigger picture of budgeting and how to realistically shop for groceries and go to the right grocery store too. And the reality is a lot of us don't eat the right way, and that's just how it is. So, with that being said, I think regardless, the goal is to teach our youth and the next generation better than even ourselves might eat or whatever the case may be. So with that, I think it's important to get them going young more than anything with the idea that they can provide food for themselves and provide meals at home and things of that nature. I think I really started to get into a lot of this, not just groceries or cooking for myself, but also financial decisions and really understanding what true independency meant when I was in college. And I do kind of wish I learned about that earlier and how to, be a little bit more financially sane and aware. But I would say I kind of had the cooking idea when I was young. My great grandma used to cook for us a lot, so I was always in the house, just waiting on her to finish making food. And then every once in a while, she would let me help her out. So, I I just emphasize again, start them as young as possible with kind of identifying what types of food and things that they find healthy or find fitting for them.
Great, thank you. And Vanessa, I'm going to pick on you. How, where did you learn how to cook? Or where did you get meal ideas from?
hmm when you ask this question, the first thing that popped in my mind is EBT. I've been playing like trial and error for the past 4 years with my CalFresh benefits. I believe I've received CalFresh the entire time the past 4.5 years since being 18. about 290 now that it's at a month. And that allows me to buy produce, buy fruit, vegetables that I might not eat. I know probably a lot of us have gone grocery shopping and not used almost half the food in the fridge. So like learning how that works and then learning how to have a job and then meal prep or eat after work, it's all been trial and error. But one thing I really want to emphasize to CASAs, and I know we've all talked about this when bringing up food, is going out to eat with your foster youth. I think that had played a really large role in my taste buds developing when I met my CASA. If my CASA had asked me where I wanted to eat at 11, I would have said McDonald's. I would have said Jack in the Box, Taco Bell. But she would bring me to the Cheesecake Factory, BJ's, restaurants that are I wouldn't really consider fancy now, but to a young child are super awesome. I also grew up on like Hamburger Helper and honey buns. So just being exposed to new food as a child, as a teenager, really impacts your want to learn how to cook for yourself. So that can be a really easy way. It's just choosing where to eat, like where would you go to eat, and then taking your foster youth there, or walking through a grocery store with them and showing them how it works. Trader Joe's, for example, I thought that store was off limits for someone like me, but it's not. In fact, I belong there. And Sprouts, I thought that was for old people. It's not. Clearly, it's for healthy people. So being brought to these new stores is just really helpful when you are facing the world on your own.
That's great. Yeah, I have read numerous times in reports that CASAs will take youth to different restaurants. And a lot of times it's the youth saying, like, I want to try this today. I want to try this and trying different cuisines or restaurants. I've also read um, CASAs and the youth cooking a meal together. Maybe the CASA knows how to cook it, or neither of them know how to cook it, and they're going to learn together. But that's definitely a great bonding moment for you and your youth or young adult, but also teaching them skills to be able to cook for themselves moving forward. And you could even go grocery shopping together for those ingredients so that you can then put that meal together. um, let's see. I think there was one other topic that we had down, driving. I know this is a big thing. Getting your driver's license is, some youth's like ultimate goal for a while, right? It's just getting their license, getting a car, and being able to go wherever they want, whenever they want. And it becomes a little tricky when you're in care because there's the liability of who's going to have you on your insurance. If you're in a group home, it doesn't quite work out. And then there's a matter of just, driving driver's lessons, right, before you get the permit. I don't know if any of the four of you went through the program with Just in Time. They do have a Changing Lanes program that does the online course, behind the wheel training, stuff like that. Did any of you use that program, or did you just wait until you were 18 to get your license? How did that look? Josh, I saw you nodding.
I was just naturally gifted, so I don't know.
I I want to say I was a permit guy and then got my license as early as I could. So I want to emphasize this when we're talking about developing a sense of independency and uh, identity as a foster youth. A car, a system of transportation, having your license is absolutely one of the biggest keys to forming a sense of independency. I know that when I was in high school and I got into my senior year and I was able to just drive myself to school, that was the best feeling in the world. So, with that being said, I didn't utilize any of the programs. I just kind of went the regular route. If you have a youth here in San Diego, just a little hack, Claremont DMV is probably the easiest driver's test in the city. So highly recommend. The route is really simple. So just don't say I said it. Don't show up to the DMV and say Anthony told me this or that, okay? But just know. So, but realistically though, really invest in that sense of independency, but in the right ways. In getting a form of transportation absolutely feeds into that. So highly recommend helping youth get their driver stuff set up.
Thank you for that. If they can't get a car or a license, the county, I believe, can get passes for the buses, for the city buses. So that's definitely something you can help get put together for them, and even teaching them how to take the city bus. That's a skill. I mean, I could probably name at least a handful of people who don't know how to do that, and they are much older than an 18-year-old foster youth. So definitely a skill that would be beneficial to these young adults, trying to get to school or their job. That's often a barrier, is transportation. So definitely something to look into as well. So with that, I'm going to look at the panelists. I don't think anybody else can see them, but I'm going to look at them and see if they have anything else they wanted to make sure we touched on tonight. Any other advice they want to give these CASAs about working with these transitional aged youth. Vanessa?
Yes, just one thing I want to say, and I know Anthony could probably touch on this too, working with modern youth. I just really wanted to emphasize as a foster youth to the CASAs who are currently working with any youth that's giving them like negative feedback or pushback, or they seem like they're not wanting to be around you. I just want to remind you that it is a really hard time to be a youth in 2026. I'm 23, and when I work with first graders, I give them as much love as possible because I know the road ahead of them is really hard in the world that we're in right now. So I just want to thank you on behalf of the foster youth who are not in a place to thank you, but I also want to encourage you to hold on and hold out. All of us on this panel have had seasons with our CASAs, most likely. I know me, where I didn't want to talk to my CASA, didn't care what she had to say, and I look back and I was just being stubborn. And I'm so grateful she stayed in my life and didn't say, well, screw you. It was nice knowing you. She stayed around. So, for the youth who can't advocate for themselves or tell you that they are thankful for you and they don't want you to go anywhere, please hold on for their behalf and for yours, because it'll be awesome to see them on the other side.
Thank you for that, Vanessa. I just want to reiterate quickly some of the resources that we talked about tonight. Again, they are really helpful for kids in this age range. They will be helpful to you as a CASA trying to support them just in time for foster youth. Again, they're big for financial literacy, the Changing Lanes program, basic needs, home furnishings, things like that. J-Bay, definitely good for heading off to college, getting the financial aid stuff, different scholarships available, all of that, and then taxes as well. They're a great resource for you there. Fostering Greatness, it's a hub of peers for youth who were in foster care, maybe even those currently in it, I believe, can be on there as well. They post jobs that they have available, and this is all over the country, mind you, not just California or San Diego County. The long-term therapy that Josh talked about earlier, so a great resource for your youth to actually sign up on. I think it's an app, if I remember correctly, so it makes it real easy for the younger generation to hop on there and see what's going on. A Place of Growth Therapy that Vanessa mentioned. Humble Designs is the one that I was trying to think of earlier. I'm not sure the population that they work with, but I do know that they help furnish homes for those who are in need. So I would definitely look into it if I were you, trying to help your young adult furnish their first home. And then CalFresh EBT, of course, definitely look into that for your youth. They can definitely sign up for that, and most likely than not will qualify for that. So definitely a good way to get some extra money for those groceries. And then you can go grocery shopping together and do some meal planning and do some meal prep. And again, another plug for any youth who are watching or CASAs with youth that they think might be interested in joining our Real Word panel. We would love to chat more with either the CASA or the youth, both. Please just reach out. We are excited to invite more panelists to join us. It's not a huge commitment once we do the training. So if you're worried about time commitments because of work or school, we can definitely we'll work with you on the training, and then after that, it's not a big commitment. But you will learn a lot of skills. You'll get professional clothing, and we would just love to have you join our community. So we look forward to having you. And a big applause to our panelists here, Anthony, Vanessa, Josh, and Emanuel. I always appreciate hearing from you guys. And tonight, I think, was especially beneficial to our group in our audience with this specific topic that a lot of CASAs are facing with their young adults, their older youth, and trying to support them. So thank you all, and everyone else, thank you for joining us. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening.